Hey, Maven here, and welcome to episode 13 of my advanced modeling tutorial series. Today I want to cover, implementing APIs from mods that don't have a Maven. Last episode we saw how easy it was to use mods that had a Maven. And I didn't even explain another thing that's really nice about one of those mods. And that is when you build your mod. Let's do it here. Let's do that. When you build your mod, you'll notice that it will build fine, even though you've got code in your mod that's referring to some other mod like Gradle. Usually that won't work out that well because you're not you don't have the Gradle source available when you're building with Gradle, as you have to keep in mind that your Eclipse compiling is separate from what Gradle is using. So Maven handles that for you. It makes it so it's kind of shared. And now we're going to cover mods that don't have a Maven, and then it will be different. You'll know what I mean in a second. So for a mod that doesn't have a Maven, I've chosen Thaumcraft. So when we are at the Curse Forge page for Thaumcraft, we will notice that Thaumcraft also has a API zip. And Thaumcraft isn't open source, so that's also something we have to deal with. So we're going to download the latest API, which is here on Curse Forge. There might be more, but alright. I've downloaded them beforehand. And also I'm going to download this version right here. I've downloaded that one beforehand as well. It's important to use the same versions, because if you're using later versions, that can cause problems if the later versions has some internal API which is different. So let's just download the same version as you're downloading the API with. So now we've got these two. The API, there we go. Let's just download the version still. And let's get this API zip and this one from here and put it in our. Let's put it here for a minute. And this API you can open, and it will contain the Thaumcraft source. Now we're going to put it somewhere. We aren't going to put it with our other source, because it's not our code and we need to keep it separate. And we also need to make sure that when we create our jar, when we build it, or mod, we need to make sure that the Thaumcraft API isn't shipped with it, because again, the same reason as we want to have the same version in our development environment, it can cause problems. Now there are some features in Forge that can prevent that, an annotation called add_API, but still it's a good a good strategy to not do it if you don't have to. So we're not going to put it in our main with this, but instead we're going to put it right in here. So when we go in source, in there, and we're going to call it API, and in here we're going to put all our APIs of mods that don't have a Maven. So our Thaumcraft code, for example. Okay. So what we now can do is go in our Eclipse, and we're going to add a new folder. and we're going to reference that folder we just created. And use that source folder, and there we go. It contains all of the Thaumcraft API, and now we can use it. But you'll notice that if I start up my Minecraft, it won't contain Thaumcraft itself. We just include the Thaumcraft API. And what we can do is actually add the mod to be loaded in our instance and development instance when we load. You'll notice it doesn't contain any Thaumcraft. And we can just drop we can take this jar and actually put it in our Eclipse and mods. So this is basically your mods folder of a instance, and you can just drop it in there. And that's quite special actually, because when it's a jar, let's see if I can show that actually. When it's a jar, we can we open that? Oh, we can't really. But yeah, you'll notice it's obfuscated, and that's it means that the code basically has been hidden from other users to be copied. So Thaumcraft is closed source, and even by opening the jar, we can't really see what's going on. So that's a step that's being done when you're building your mod as well. And so we can drop this jar in there to be run, and we can only do that when we've got another mod that helps deobfuscating the mods in there really, and that mod is Code Chicken Core. That mod is doing that for us. So if you've got Code Chicken Core in your environment, like we do, you can drop any obfuscated mod in your mods folder. Usually you have to put in the dev version of that mod if you don't have Code Chicken Core in there. But now with startup, for instance, this will work. It should work at least. And so by having Thaumcraft in our instance, we can immediately test if our API implementation will work, which is really nice, of course. You'll notice that Thaumcraft isn't there now. Nice. Okay, let's start using Thaumcraft, the Thaumcraft API. So I was thinking of doing a simple thing, adding aspects to our custom block. Now, you usually don't have to do that if you set up a normal crafting recipe for a certain block or item, because then Thaumcraft will generate aspects for it. However, if you don't do that, if you haven't got a normal recipe for a block or item, in fact we haven't set up any recipes for our blocks, then you have to do it manually. So if we go to Thaumcraft API, you'll notice there's a register object tag, and that's basically, well, what it says. So usually when you're dealing with APIs, you can just browse through every class and every class really to see what you can do with an API, and it isn't too much. There isn't too much code in an API usually, so you can, and it's well documented usually, so it's really, well, it's readable. So I'm using this in pneumatic art as well, so that's why I knew how to find this. So Thaumcraft API dot register object tag, and we can give it an item tag and a aspect list, which is just a list of aspects and an aspect count. So let's do something simple. I'm just going to do it in here. I know that's wrong, and I'm going to explain why later. We are going to do Thaumcraft API register object tag. I'm going to do new item stack and do not blocks dot Dutch flag and do new aspect list and do add and do 5. Sure. I knew how to work with this as well, but you can just look at it, and there's a method called add, and it just adds an aspect with a certain amount. And if you open up aspect, you'll see it's kind of a enum typed way. There are public static variables which you can just access right there, and those have all the info about aspects, and you can even add your own aspects if you want to. So I can do aspect.error and add a value. So the Dutch flag should now have error as aspect and have 5 as aspect count, so 5 error. And if we start up our instance, we'll verify that. Dutch flag and a thermometer. Oh, whoops, we still had some explosion code in there, didn't we? And if we scan it, there we go, 5 error. Nice. Now we added this feature, let's build a mod. Now you'll notice that it will fail building, and the reason is that we, like I said at the beginning, compiling in Eclipse is different from compiling with Gradle. And there we go, and it's saying that it's missing Thaumcraft API basically. So the issue is that we have our Minecraft source, we have our mod source, however we don't have the Thaumcraft API while we're compiling our mod. So what we need to do is tell Gradle where it can find our APIs. So let's go in our build.gradle, and I'm actually going to cheat and take from the pneumaticraft Gradle file the code that makes it work basically, and we can copy paste that in there. And we can make it look a little bit better. Whoops. So we can do that, and just going to do this for now. So source sets tells Gradle where it can find sources, and the main is our own mod, and API is everything that needs to be compiled but shouldn't be included in our jar at the end. So Java is for code, and resources is for things like textures and sounds. So we are just going to specify folders basically, and we're going to say from here in source main Java you can find our own code, source main in Java, and in source main resources you can find our resources. And in source main API you can find our APIs, right? No, source API, it's just source API. Okay, so that tells Gradle where it can find our APIs. So let's try again. And this should work actually. If we're going to build, and we should find a ellipse, there we go. And build successful. And if we look in here, we'll hopefully don't see a Thaumcraft. See the Thaumcraft source, and we don't, so that indicates that it has worked. So I set up an instance with just my mod in there, the advanced mod, but it crashes at startup, saying that it's missing aspect list, no class defined, no class definition found, error. So that all has to do with this, and you'll notice that it will work when we add Thaumcraft. Let's see. Boo. Eclipse mods, add it in here, and try again. And there we go. That seems to be loading. Thaumcraft, bubbles, and our advanced mod. So what's happening here? Well, the thing is, when we load up our instance without Thaumcraft installed, our code is still referencing Thaumcraft even though it isn't there. And as we don't have access to the API either, this will crash. So before we actually reference to Thaumcraft, we need to make sure that we have Thaumcraft available in our instance. So there are a couple of things we can do. I think we can do it a quick and easy way, or yeah, let's do something like this. You can do if Loader.isModLoaded and give it a mod ID. Now I don't know the mod ID of Thaumcraft on the top of my head. There we go. So Thaumcraft is just Thaumcraft, but yeah, uppercasing, lowercasing, all kinds of different styles, as you can see right here. So this IDE is a FML edition which returns true when the certain mod ID, the mod that's associated with the mod ID is in this instance, and it will return false if it is not. So we could just put it right in here. That still will crash though, because of class loading. It will still be referenced even before this if statement is being evaluated true. It's like when this class is instantiated, really. So we need to do even more to make this work, and what we can do is make a method on Thaumcraft, or we can do load Thaumcraft. And we can put it right in here. We can put the method right in here. And to make sure that this code only is here when Thaumcraft is installed, we can use a annotation added by Forge, and it's called optional. Add optional, and we do method, and we do iface mod ID equals Thaumcraft. And there we go, that one. So what this annotation does is, as soon as this class gets loaded, it will check if the mod associated with the mod ID is loaded, is in this instance, and if it's not, this entire method will be stripped from the class internally behind the scenes. So this doesn't even exist when this mod isn't around. And when it is around, it will stay. So that's how we can handle this. And this should work. At least it should work when we start up in our development environment, and it should also work when we build our mod. Now there are other things you could do, because as soon as you're adding more mods, this will get a little bit messy to do, else if loader is, or another if loader, something like this, and then another mod, and so on and so forth. There are other ways to handle it in a neat way, but there's a neater way. I'm using it in Pneumaticraft, but I'll leave it to you to find out how to do it. You could look at how Pneumaticraft does it, or you can design your own system, really. But this code still should work. Yeah, there you go. And believe me when I say it will work when you build a mod and put it in an instance without any other mod. Now, add optional can be used for more than just methods. It can be used to annotate classes. So, for example, I'm not going to show it in code by coding it. I'm just going to show you an example from Pneumaticraft. For Pneumaticraft, my user interfaces, or my GUIs, have tabs, and when an AI is installed and you open a tab, it will make sure that it pushes away any items in the AI screen. And the way it does that is by implementing an interface from NEI right here. And the methods it's implementing are right there. So some methods are annotated with an optional method to make sure that it doesn't crash when it tries to access this this class, this type, which is a NEI only type. And if you're just accessing, if the method only has vanilla types like GUI container, you don't need to annotate it. But anyway, I was talking about the interface. So this interface, of course, isn't available when NEI isn't installed. So I need to make sure that this interface gets stripped off this class when NEI is not installed. And that's again why we're using add optional. And we're saying add optional interface. We're saying this exact interface, INEI GUI handler, but you need to prefix it with the package. From this mod ID, strip it off when this mod isn't installed. So this could also be used when you're, for example, you have a block which is powered by RF, but optionally. So only when CFH lib is installed, then you want to make it be powered by RF. And if not, it will still work without RF. So to make a block work on RF, you need to implement some interface, and you can annotate it with add optional interface. So those are some uses for add optional. And with that, I think I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all for watching. See you all next episode. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next episode, but you'll see right then. Bye bye. Thank you all for watching, and bye bye.